Hello friends. So, I am before you all to tell you more about consumer rights. So, it's my humble request to you that please watch this video till end so that you may get more aware about the consumer rights. And I am hoping that you have filled that form appropriately. So, let's start. The phrase consumer rights is thrown around rather freely these days. But what are consumer rights? Are they written down somewhere? Where do they come from? What are the rights? I am hoping that these are the questions in your mind while filling the form. So, I am here to answer these questions. First question is, what are consumer rights? Consumer rights are generally a reference to a body of law that pertains to things the producers of goods must do to protect customers from harm. These laws have come into existence through a series of legal disputes and have been shaped by the results of those cases. In a few instances, some states have actually codified regulations that they refer to as consumer rights laws. But this is not yet the majority practice, and even these codifications may not cover all of the principles that are generally considered consumer rights. Now, I am telling you more deep that what is the right stand in the word consumer right. One of the most widely accepted basic consumer rights is the right to safety. In other words, consumers should be able to assume that the products that they buy are reasonably safe for their intended purpose when used as directed. Defective safety equipment in cars, excessively flammable home products, and dangerous toys are a few examples of products that were found to be unreasonable safe and helped shape the body of law creating this right. Through decisions holding the makers and sellers of these products liable for injuries resulting from their dangerous designs, this right against unsafe products has been discerned. Now, there are some of the newspaper clips in the concern of consumer rights. You can see here. Now, what do you mean by the consumer in market? The consumer market pertains to buyers who purchase goods and services for consumption rather than resale. However, not all consumers are alike in their tastes, preferences, and buying habits due to different characteristics that can distinguish certain consumers from others. Here is a clip for the consumer in a market. Now, I am tell you about some of the consumer movements. The term consumer movement refers to only non-profit advocacy groups and grassroots activism to promote consumer interests by reforming the practices of corporations or policies of government. So the consumer movement is a subset of the discipline of consumerism. Now, what are the features of consumer movements? Here are the features of consumer movements. First of all, voluntary movement, democratic movement, comprehensive movement, protection of rights, prevention of malpractices, unity among consumers, enforcing consumer rights, seller beware, and finally, prime objectives. Now, what do you mean by consumer international? You have been listening about that international trade or consumer who are living abroad or internationally. What was that? Consumers International is the membership organization for consumer groups around the world. It was founded on 1 April 1960 It has over 250 member organizations in 120 countries. Its head office is based in London, England, with regional offices in Latin America, Asia Pacific, Middle East, and Africa. Now, more information about Consumers International. It was founded in 1960. What is the type charity number? The type charity number is 1122155. They focuses on consumer protection watchdog. Location London N5 United Kingdom. Origins formerly the International Organization of Consumers Unions. Areas served global method campaigning and their members are 250. Now, was the consumer movement in India? India has long tradition of food adulteration, black marketing, hoarding, underweighing, etc. It was from 1960s that the consumer movement began in India. Till the 1970s, consumer movement was mainly restricted to writing articles and holding exhibitions. But there has been an upsurge in the number of consumer groups in recent times. The level of dissatisfaction with the sellers and service providers was such an extent that the consumers had no choice but to raise their voice. After many years of organized struggle, the government was forced to take notice and finally the Consumer Protection Act, COPRA, was enacted in the year 1986. Now, more about consumer rights and what are basically the rights are. First right is right to be informed. A consumer has the right to have correct information about a product. There are rules which make it mandatory to mention ingredients and safety features on the pack of a product. Proper information helps a consumer to make informed buying decision. A pack of a product also needs a mention the MRP, maximum retail price, and a consumer can complain if the seller asks for more than the MRP. Second consumer right to choose. A consumer has the right to choose from different options. A seller cannot just offer to sell only one brand to the consumer. The seller has to offer various options to the consumer. This right is usually enforced through laws against monopoly trade. Third right to seek redressal. If a consumer gets affected by false promises made by the producer or suffers because of manufacturing defect, he has the right to seek redressal. Suppose you took a mobile connection and the bill shows many hidden charges which were not explained to you earlier, or the mobile company activated a ringtone without your permission. Then you can go to the consumer court to put your case. Next is right to represent. The right to represent gives the recruiter the exclusive right to represent you to a given company for the purposes of a job. After you sign this, that company now acts as your personal agent with that given company for a certain period of time. Now, what is consumer forum? You have many times listened the term forum. So what is basically it? The consumer movement in India has led to the information of various organizations locally known as consumer forums or consumer protection councils. They guide consumers on how to file cases in the consumer court. On many occasions, they also represent individual consumers in the consumer courts. The voluntary organizations also receive financial support from the government for creating awareness among the people. If you are living in a residential colony, you might have noticed name boards of resident welfare associations. If there is any unfair trade practice meted out to their members, they take up the case on their behalf. Now, what are consumer courts? Consumer courts. This is a three-tier quasi-judicial system. The district level court deals with cases involving claims up to rupees 20 lakh. The state level court deals with cases between rupees 20 lakh to rupees 1 crore. The national court dealt with cases which involve claiming exceeding rupees 1 crore. If a case is dismissed in district court, the consumer can also appeal in state and then in national level courts. Here is the consumer buying process. What are the main processes that a consumer should be focused before buying a thing? First of all, problem recognition, then information search, then evaluation of alternatives, purchase decision, purchase, and post-purchase evaluation. Now, what are consumer frauds? What are basically the main frauds that a consumer had to face? First, identity theft. It is a crime that occurs when someone steals your personal information, which can include your name, social security number, bank account number, and credit card information, often through data mining. The goal of the thieves is to use your personal information to assume your identity or the identity of the victim. Once they have their identity, they can open credit cards in your name and charge purchases. Thieves might open utility accounts in your name that can be used as proof that the thieves are real or legitimate people, since utility addresses are often required for proof of residency on loans and other financial products. The fraudsters can access your bank account and drain the funds in some cases. The thieves have assessed the health insurance of the victims and had medical charges and treatments billed to the insurance companies. Second is mortgage fraud. The FBI deals with the thousands of mortgage fraud cases each year. Today's mortgage scams are often aimed at distressed homeowners, according to the FBI's Financial Institution Fraud Unit. These scams include foreclosure rescue schemes, loan modification schemes, and equity skimming, among others. They are often carried out by real estate and mortgage professionals who misuse their specialized knowledge and authority. The FBI recommends that consumers protect themselves against mortgage fraud by seeking referrals and avoiding unsolicited relationships and checking their license. Also, walk away from any transaction that's high pressure or seems too good to be true, and don't sign any paperwork that you don't understand. The other is credit and debit card fraud. If you notice charges on your credit card that aren't yours, call from your bank immediately to report it and have the credit card cancelled. Your credit card number should have been picked up by an employee at a company where you purchase goods. Often, the fraudulent purchases are made online. The good news is that consumers are not typically responsible for the amounts lost in cases of credit card fraud. The Fair Credit Billing Act limits the liability of to $50, and oftentimes there is no cost at all. Debit card fraud can happen to anyone, including a certified fraud examiner (CFE) like Ken Stolkup. Mr. Stolkup worked for Sumerest CPAs in Indianapolis. At the time of this interview, used his debit card to pay the bill at a local restaurant, and according to Stolkup, his card was misused, but he had not caused any cost for that return. The bank had returned him the money himself. The other is fake charities. Fake charities use the same techniques to steal your money that legitimate charities use to raise funds, according to the Federal Trade Commission (FTC). Before you donate, make sure you know where your money is going. Ignore high pressure pitches, don't give cash, and be especially careful in the wake of natural disasters, which is when con artists prey on the sympathetic and generous. Get the charity's contact information and check out the organization before you give. Make sure the organization is legitimate and is an IRS approved non-profit. Also, it's best to research if the donations are being used for its intended purpose. Next is fake lotteries. The typical lottery fraud targets the elderly and originates with a phone call or postcard from a foreign country. The FTC received tens of thousands of complaints about lottery fraud every year. Even many victims don't report being scammed. Officials estimate the problem's scope is far greater. These fake international lottery scams ask the winner to send money to cover taxes on the prize. Victims who pay are then harassed for more money. The stolen money is rarely recovered. Furthermore, victims' names and contact information may get placed on sucker lists. They are told to fraudsters who will target the same victim for further scams. Now, debit collection fraud. There are scammers who call and pose as a collection agency calling to collect a debt. They will try to get your personal information such as account numbers or your social security number. Don't give any personal information to anyone over the phone or via email. They may try to coerce and threaten legal action to scare you into giving up your financial information. Often, they will be vague about the amount of debt you owe. Also, they won't give you their address and phone number to prevent you from verifying who they are or their claims. Who prevent fraud? The FTC or the Federal Trade Commission's Bureau of Consumer Protection is charged with stopping unfair, fraudulent, and deceptive business practices. The FTC collects complaints from consumers and sues companies that are engaged in fraud. The Bureau also educates consumers and makes rules designed to protect you from identity theft. If you believe you were a victim of identity theft, the FTC has a website that outlines the steps to take and how to file a complaint. Now, there are some secrets. How can you be a good consumer? Don't be intimidated. Get people's name. Get things in writing. Do your homework for the things which you buy. Keep your paperwork completed. Be a good customer and be nice to everyone. Now, how to take consumer movement forward? Consumer Protection Act was started in 126 and in the present times there is the development of more structured organization in order to carry out the different sort of activities to benefit consumers. Moreover, consumer actions plans can only prove fruitful when they have involved the full participation of consumers. What is Consumer Right Act? The Consumer Right Act 1986 COPRA is an act of the Parliament of India enacted in the year 1986 to protect the interests of consumers in India. It is replaced by the Consumer Protection Act 2019. It is made for the establishment of consumer councils and other authorities for the settlement of consumers' grievances and matters connected with it. The act was passed in Assembly in October 1986 and came into force on December 24, 1986. The statute on the right was made before this COPRA Act. Here are the sources which I have used to take the information. You can have a look.